Here's a question. How can you be charged with DWI and still pursue a job in law enforcement?
That's what News 4's George Rickard is investigating in this morning's special assignment.
On the 4th of July, 2004, Olean police officer Ronald Richardson was off duty when police say he swerved to avoid a deer and collided with another car and a trailer before crashing into this shed. He was charged with DWI, but was allowed to stay on the force. In fact, he has since been promoted to sergeant. 2 weeks earlier, his fellow officer, Thomas Deckman, was also charged with DWI after his car struck 2 vehicles while off duty. He, too, was allowed to stay on the force. In 1998, a third Olean police officer was off duty when he struck and killed 77-year-old Purina Pescucci in a crosswalk in Olean. Olean police say it was dark outside and Mrs. Pescucci was wearing dark clothing, which may have contributed to the fatal accident. But this officer had also been drinking. His blood alcohol content was .04, only half of what is now the legal limit, so he wasn't charged. But attorney Mark Williams represented the victim's family in a civil suit, and he says what alcohol there was in the policeman's system became a significant factor in a legal settlement.
Do not think for one moment that every night before his head hits the pill that he doesn't think of Mrs. Pescucci.
Chief Terry Schnell was on the department but wasn't the chief for any of these incidents. In fact, he was the one who finally asked for the resignation of then Officer Thomas Deckman after his second DWI crash just a few years ago.
There has never been a cover-up of any of these matters.
During this interview, the chief volunteered to us that he also has a DWI arrest in his past.
I was 19 years old, going to my second tour of duty in Vietnam. DWI was looked at differently in 1970.
Chief Schnell sees nothing wrong with a second chance.
Giving someone a second chance I don't think is ever wrong, depending on the severity of what the charge or the accusation is.
One of the viewers who brought this to our attention didn't want to be identified, but expects more from law enforcers.
I think that they're police officers. They should be held to a higher standard, and if they're going to be allowed to pull people over for DWIs, they shouldn't have them themselves.
Police officers, firemen, teachers, lawyers, doctors are all human beings, and people make mistakes. But as Chief Schnell said, nothing was covered up.
Now, Olean Mayor Kathleen Witt has only been mayor for a year and a half and was not in charge for any of these incidents. We should also point out that it was the Olean Police Department investigating most of these cases and arresting, in most cases, their own officers.
I guess this is the question most people are asking. Were they treated any differently in court?
Not really. When you're arrested for DWI the first time, most people have the option of pleading down to driving while ability impaired. That's exactly what happened in a couple of these cases. So when we talk about a second chance, the second chance is really that they were able to keep their job. But these are not felony charges, so the department really has the discretion of whether to keep the officer.
And that's just for the first offense, right?
For the first offense. The case we talked about where somebody needed a third chance, he didn't get it.
Okay. All right, George, thanks for joining us this morning.
Okay.